2019, I will call this meeting of the Webster School Committee to order and ask that we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which is one nation, under God, visible, with liberty. I hope everybody is enjoying the beginning of their summer so far. Just to remind everybody that this meeting is being recorded, both video and audio. First item on the agenda, I will entertain a motion to approve our June 20th, 2019 minutes.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Laurie, would you poll the committee, please?
Yes.
Abstain.
Yes.
Yes. Next item on the agenda is the superintendent's report. Good evening, Dr. Gogan.
Good evening, everyone. How is everyone tonight?
We're hanging in there.
I have good news. I would like to inform you that we have hired Mr. Fran Thomas as the Bartlett High School interim high school principal. Fran is here tonight. We had a series of interviews. Mr. Thomas came in and met with the admin team, and then came in and met with the Bartlett High School admin team, and then came in and met with a number of teachers, and unanimously was selected for this position. I'm pleased to introduce Mr. Thomas. He comes to Bartlett High School with 26 years of experience in education, all of them in Fitchburg, Massachusetts. 19 of them have been as the principal of the Memorial School. Fran was a teacher in Title I and an assistant principal before becoming the principal of Memorial. Prior to entering education, Mr. Thomas worked for a number of high-tech companies in marketing and communication. He's a graduate of Leominster High. He holds a bachelor's degree in English from the University of Massachusetts and a master's degree in education, leadership, and management from Fitchburg State. He also holds certificates for the National Institute of School Leadership and for the Advanced ALICE training. Fran has 2 daughters, Hannah and Jordan, and Fran's hobbies include going to the gym, reading and writing, and he is the author of a novel and many op-ed columns in local papers. I'm very pleased to introduce to the school committee Mr. Fran Thomas.
Thank you, Dr. Cogan. I'm very happy to be here. I don't know if any committee members have any questions for me. I've been here since Monday, and the welcoming has been fantastic. I got to take a tour of the city today, and it's great. Just very happy to be here.
The only final test you have is you have to pronounce the real name of the lake.
Yeah, they told me that today. I'm working on it.
Yeah.
I can't do it, so
Yeah.
we both fail. But let me just say on behalf of the school committee, welcome. I'm sure there's a lot of work to be done with you and your team between now and the beginning of the school year, and hopefully we'll have a positive school year at Bartlett next year, and we're very happy that you're joining us.
Thank you.
We have a meet and greet scheduled for this Thursday for the staff at Bartlett High School. It will be held in this room, given that the high school is being cleaned by our custodians and lots of things are in the hallway. And then we also have a meet and greet for families and students here as well on Thursday. So we hope anyone who's watching spreads the news and comes to meet Mr. Thomas. I'm also pleased tonight to, I know I've informed you, but I wanted to have Mrs. Gina Neves come to the meeting so that you could meet her in person, and if you don't know her. She is our new Bartlett High School Dean, and I'd like to tell you a little bit about Gina. Gina is a 1993 Bartlett High School graduate. She has a bachelor's degree in chemistry and a master's degree in special education from both Assumption College. She began teaching in a very non-traditional school setting in Florida, where she taught math and science in an all-boys juvenile detention center. From there, she went to teach at a local high school and taught chemistry. She came back home to Webster and spent the next 6 years first teaching and then the assistant director of the Kathleen Burns Preparatory School in Worcester, Mass. She began working in Bartlett in 2005 and has held several positions. Those included being an inclusion teacher, a reading teacher, a STEM teacher, and a substitute for building administration. She's developed a taught and led both the junior high and high school Tier 2 and Tier 3 behavior management programs. As the Dean of Students at Bartlett High School, Gina's focus is implementing PBIS back into our school, providing our students with a variety of intervention strategies and de-escalation techniques, and most importantly, working as closely as a team with our faculty and administration to help our students be the best that they can be. On a personal note, as I said, Gina grew up in Webster, and she has 2 sons, Nathan and Xander, who is a 2nd grader at Park Avenue School. Gina's not busy enough, so she is also a Cub Master for the Cub Scouts in Webster, and she is a baseball coach for the Webster Little League. Welcome, Gina. You want to say anything, Gina?
Just do me a favor,
Turn
because
the
I get
mic.
yelled at. There you go.
Okay. I'm just very happy to be here and having the chance to do this for our kids.
Well, Gina and I have only known each other for a few years, so I can only speak for myself, but I'm sure my colleagues are thrilled that you're stepping up and becoming our new Dean of Students, so thank you.
Thank you.
And last but not least, I am pleased to introduce to you Mr. Dan Kelly. Mr. Dan Kelly will be the interim Webster Middle School Dean of Students this year. Dan Kelly has been working in education for 20 years, 8 within the town of Webster as a classroom teacher and coach. He's earned his bachelor's degree in English with a minor in communications and a concentration in middle and secondary education from Assumption College. He has a master's degree in education leadership and management from Fitchburg State University, and he's also completing a master's program in English at Worcester State University. On a personal note, Mr. Kelly's wife is also an educator, and they have 3 active and inquisitive children who all love school. Outside of school, Dan loves his family time and anything that has to do with Disney and Harry Potter. He likes outdoor activities such as tennis and mountain biking and skiing. Dan is eagerly anticipating the start of the upcoming year and looking forward to working with moving the Webster Middle School forward.
Thank you. I am really excited to take this plunge into the admin realm of education. I look forward to continuing to work with Mr. Zajac and Mr. Kay while he's still here, and whoever steps in to fill his role. But I'm pretty excited. I'm looking forward to it, and I thank you for the opportunity.
We are pleased to have you, and I do want to just inform the school committee that the 3 deans across our district are participating in the Research for Better Teaching evaluation training this week and spent the day one together today. And before we entered this meeting, they were sharing with me how helpful it was for them all to be together to be conversing about district cohesiveness.
Again, Mr. Kelly, all I know is that you're the best girls tennis coach in Central Mass, from what they've told me. But again, on behalf of the entire committee, thank you for stepping up and welcome.
Thank you.
On another personnel updates, we have hired Patrick Diggins as the Bartlett High School Adjustment Counselor, and he is also a graduate of Webster Bartlett High. We have hired Brandon Meese as the grade 3 teacher at Park Avenue Elementary School. And in my notes, I had said that we would be moving an ABA position from the Webster Middle School to the Bartlett High School. That is really a work in progress, so it's a little too early to say where paras are going to be moving, but we will keep you updated on that. Other information in my report, I did attend the annual superintendent's conference. It was a very busy 3 days. The Institute marked 25 years of doing the superintendent's conference, and they dedicated it to Mr. Paul Andrews, who was one of the founders of this organization. So a lot of celebratory stuff happened for Mr. Paul Andrews, and it was really wonderful to see that as he was retiring. The conference itself completely validated what we are doing here in Webster. Topics included everything that we've been talking about for the last 2 years: equitable access for our students, how to bring social emotional learning into the implementation of the day-to-day practices, how to balance building relationships with closing learning achievement gaps. There were a number of presentations that I attended. The Commissioner of Education was there. The chair of the Department of Education was there, the Board of Education was there. The legal updates from Mike Long were incredible, and the ability to converse with superintendents across the state is very, very valuable. We often think that things that happen here just happen to us, but when you sit and you talk to other superintendents, there's a pattern and a theme with some of the things that are happening. I was pleased to attend. On other updates, I would like to inform you with our SWEC board, the executive director, Elizabeth Fitzmaurice, has resigned. SWEC is in the process of hiring an interim replacement. There is a meeting tomorrow morning at 9 that I will be attending. I'm hoping after that meeting we have an interim in place. We received the notification that the adult education grant for FY20 in the amount of $376,000 has been granted. Last year, that was $470,000. There have been some reductions and some changes that I would like to inform you about on behalf of Ms. Leslie Baker. Last year's budget was $470,000. As I said, this year's budget has been approved at $376,000. There have been a cut of 64 seats for the adult education program, but an increase in the funding for the seats. So the overall cut has been about $94,000. As you know, the adult education program has had a program review, and Mrs. Baker and her team are working on addressing some of those issues that were brought to light. And I would also like to let you know that in an effort to continue ongoing two-way communication, monthly meetings have been set with the WEA. We can certainly do 2 meetings a month, but we have on our calendar 1 meeting a month to keep the open communication flowing. And I'm hopeful that that will help us with solving problems in a timely fashion and keeping the lines of communication open. Our summer school programs and summer eats programs are up and running. Just for anyone who's watching, the summer eats programs are at North Village this year on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and at the town library on Fridays, and at Hoops for Hope on Friday nights. As an update, I have informed you that we've been working with MAFRE on a number of new initiatives that we're trying to see if they're a good fit. One of them is the Real Madrid Sports Achievement Program. I have had the opportunity to speak with the principal up in Lawrence regarding this program. It's a sports training program used for certain subsets of your population. Up in Lawrence, they're using it for they have a school within a school, and it's second language learners. So they're using it for kids that are coming from other countries into America and teaching them how to learn basketball or soccer. They do not compete. I'm not sure it's a good match for us, so we're doing a little bit more investigation. I have asked my contact at MAFRE if this could be something that we did with special education students, seeing how we don't have Special Olympics. It might be a nice niche. It's not a competitive program. It's teaching kids about themselves through sports. So we need to find the right group of kids that would work for. And I think it's more, from what I've learned about it, I think it's more appropriate for middle school than high school. So that's in the works. As I have written to you, I'm not sure I spoke about it at the last meeting. We are working on several Foundation MAFRE grants. One is in collaboration with Head Start to build up the Head Start classes, to have another group of students be able to access the summer program, and to build a parent education 6-week series training to help with the Head Start and kindergarten transition and help give some of our families some of the resources that they need. So we are finalizing that. We are also working on a grant that sort of started as a small little idea. We've been calling it the Food for Thought grant, but it's kind of getting lots of little webs and it's not finished. where we want to beef up our food pantries at our schools and really take away the stigma of having a food pantry or having students have to access that with Mafre's help by having fun spaces where those food pantries are, and possibly having our life skills classrooms at each of the buildings manage these food pantries and giving them real life experience with keeping inventory and having Mafre possibly stock them with food from the grocery store, culturally diverse food that kids want to eat or typically eat for their families. And that led to how are we going to feed families in the summer. Part of the grant would include, is going to include having a van once we know who those families are and maybe possibly delivering food once a week to those families during the summer. And then that led to possibly beefing up our health and nutritional curriculum across the district. So tomorrow we have a meeting. I have a meeting scheduled again with Ellen Nyland, and we've invited the health teachers from the middle school and the high school to attend to see what their feedback is to sort of put this together and massage it. So I will keep you up to date on that. And other than that, we've been very busy planning for next year at this central office. Monique and I had a conference call with MSBA, and we are on target with our eligibility period deadlines and the building committee. So I'm going to pass it to you.
Yep. Last Tuesday, we had a conversation with Diane Sullivan and our representative, Jess El Delcanio from the MSBA. She's assigned to Webster as our liaison for the project. We have a set of deadlines. Our clock started ticking on July 1, 2019. So we are in eligibility phase for 270 days. So for us, that expires on March 27th, 2020. So during the time starting now and March, we have benchmarks that we have to meet and stuff that we have to complete. We had to submit in an initial compliance certification by July 31st. That was done the first week of July, so we're all set there. By August 30th, we have to submit in our building committee file, so we are on target for that. I'm hoping to submit that in next week after tonight's meeting. I know the Board of Selectmen did meet last night, and they appointed Lisa Contos as their rep for the building committee. So depending on how things go tonight, I can finish filling out that form, have it signed and sent in, so we'll be ahead of target on that. The superintendent is working on an educational profile questionnaire. That's really what is kind of going to drive the project, how it looks. What does Bartlett look like in a few years from now? What educational programming are we going to bring into the system? So I know she is working on that, and I'm sure she'll be pulling Mr. Thomas in shortly and some other Bartlett staff members to team up and start working on that project. We also have some enrollment projections that I need to work on with the town clerk, so I have to submit those by September 30th. And a big part for me is the maintenance and capital planning. That's quite the task. I remember Mr. Avlis many times hearing some fun comments coming from the other office while he was completing that document. I think it gave him a few gray hairs, and he wished me good luck when we were talking about it. So I look forward to completing that. But we are on target. We do have to start moving and start talking as a team as once the building committee gets formed, because we need to start. We're going to have to go to town meeting once we get going and look at getting a feasibility study approved. And there's going to be some required funding for that. So we've got to start looking at deadlines. And once it goes through the town, that needs to get approved by the state. So looking ahead, the state, the MSBA meets December, February, and April. So April would be the last meeting that we could get on for the board to get the project approved, if it's approved at town meeting. So we really need to, once the building committee is formed, start meeting and looking at a timeline moving forward to get all our ducks in a row. So it was a good conversation. They were happy with
were.
where we were at with everything. They said we are right on target. And they are here for our assistance, so as we go through, if we have questions, they're a phone call and an email away. I said, well, I'm sure we're gonna be on first name basis, so we're all good there.
And that concludes my report.
Thank you very much. Any comments or questions from the members? Hearing none, moving on with the agenda. The next item on the agenda is the business manager report. Once again, good evening, Mrs. Perangeli.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. We are working on the FY19 budget. We are very close to closing that out. I will definitely have a full budget to you by our next school committee meeting. I am hoping to have it pretty much finalized by the end of next week. As you know, you didn't get the warrant until today. I apologize for that, but it was our last official FY19 warrant. So we held it until the very last minute that we could yesterday, waiting for all those last-minute bills to come in. Because once this warrant's completed, we are not allowed to pay anything unless it's either encumbered. And if we finally closed out and it's not encumbered, it has to go to town meeting for approval. So we try and cross all our Ts and dot all our Is and make sure we have everything in order before we make these final changes. We are closing out the budget, what looks to be like in good shape for the school department. I am pleased to say that we would have some surplus. I have been in communications with the town. As you know, we've been updating the committee all year, and I've been working closely with the town for our transportation. We are ending the transportation about $220,000 in the deficit. So in my communications with the town, we've been going back and forth, and they are looking for some assistance from the school department. So I believe we will be able to support them with about $150,000, and they will take the remaining deficit. So if school committee approves of that, I told them I would run it by you guys. I wasn't saying yes without talking to you, to assist the town with taking on some of that. Most of the deficit was the foster care transportation, which we were anticipating all year.
When you say most out of the 220, what do you think is?
We did have some homeless. The homeless receipts come in, and that goes directly back to town. We don't see that. Some of it was homeless transportation, and some move-ins for special ed kids. But I would say out of the 220, there was at least probably 180 to 190 of foster care transportation, which coincides, when I did my projection for next year, I was projecting a $200,000 deficit. That's what I brought to the town for next year, as a reason why we needed to increase that. So I think that target was kind of point on. I know the town administrator called me the other day, and he said, you gave me that number. Was that as of January, or was that for the year? And I'm like, no, that was for the year. I said, we were on target. So I think hopefully, it's something we're gonna have to watch next year. Really keep a close eye on, and we have to keep pushing the state to seek some of that, some reimbursement for that, because I think it's unrealistic to ask communities to come up with that kind of money. It's an unfunded mandate, really, is what it is. But I think we are on point to be able to do that 150 for the town, and that will pretty much zero out our budget, and we can move on to FY20 if the committee agrees.
Was that it?
For the budget, that's it.
Okay.
Yep.
You don't need a vote tonight, do you?
I'm looking for some consensus because I am looking to close out the budget, so that's going to impact what I do in the next week.
So you're looking for opinions to present the final budget for next meeting?
I'm closing out the budget, and what I'm looking for, the school committee is somewhat of an okay to transfer some of the $150,000 in deficit into our budget. So that way, I'll take the expenses from the town and move them into our budget, which will help close out the budget, and it'll offset the expenditures for the town. So they'll be looking at a $70,000 deficit versus a $200,000.
And we're very, very confident that we have that
I am.
in excess?
I am.
Any questions or comments from the members? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to authorize the business manager to finalize the FY19 budget, including a $150,000 transfer to the town side to help offset the deficit in transportation.
So moved.
It's transfer from the town side.
Sorry, transfer from the town side.
Yeah.
We'll amend our motion, correct?
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Laura, would you poll the committee, please?
Yes.
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 Thank you. And I'll make sure at the next school committee you have a full closeout budget for you. The next item I have is summer projects. The custodians are very busy cleaning the building. We don't have a lot of major projects going on this summer. The budget was pretty lean, and we've been maintaining ourselves really well during the school year, fixing things, not holding things, trying to be proactive with repairs so they don't lead to other repairs. So we've been, they've done a really good job with that this year. We've done a couple minor things. We have the doors for the garage needed changing, updating, so we replaced them outside. I have some gutters that are broken on the side of the building. I will be repairing them. One of the bigger projects that I need to take care of, it's not a huge expense, but it's something I have to do. I don't have a choice because we have grown so much in Park Ave. We are using rooms that were initially designed not to be classrooms. They were just staff, and now that we have students in them, there is no adjoining door in between, and that is a hazard. We need to have a second egress. We would just happen to be there with the building inspector looking at some other things, and he's like, this can't be a classroom. You need a door there. So I am having a vendor, I had a vendor come in and give me some quotes, and we will be replacing, putting in, installing a doorway in between the two classrooms. Another thing we are looking at is in the library, maybe enclosing some of the, on the wall on the right-hand side, there's some, I don't know what you would call them. Yeah, reading nooks that are in on the side. We've talked about maybe enclosing them and with a glass front so we can have small workspaces for interventionists and people to use with students during the day, because they are now sharing spaces in multiple areas, so to give them some privacy while they're working with kids and doing some small services, we're looking at that. So you wouldn't think that I needed to do the work in the newest building, but that seems to be where we need to do the work, because we're using almost every corner of that space over there. As far as it's crazy how we've grown into that building. Yeah, we've walked through trying to say, how can we do this? Where can we put kids? What can we do differently? What space can we use? It's a gorgeous, beautiful building, but it's full. It is full. So we're doing the best we can with that location. In the middle school, there's nothing major going on there. It's just we had some repairs to some rooftop units, and that's about it on the custodial maintenance side of things. The guys are working really hard, and I can't thank them enough. They do a fantastic job. You can walk through the buildings and you see desks being, floors shining, waxing, being cleaned. They are doing some great work, so I thank them on the summer maintenance stuff. And then as far as technology goes for summer, we have ordered our Chromebooks. As you know, as part of our cycles, we replace 5th and 9th grade every year coming in. With new Chromebooks, and then once they hit, they have them through the 4 years that they're in school. Next year's class will be our first class that has had their Chromebooks for 4 years. So one of our concerns is that they wouldn't last the 4 years when we went with Chromebooks. Are they good? And what we're finding is that they're doing okay with them. Right now, the seniors are turning them in as they leave, and we use them for replacements or loaners or parts if they're beyond repair. But they're holding up, so we're doing okay with that, and we will be on point for the start of the school year. So I want to thank my tech team, because they're also working hard. They're scrambling, they're cleaning, they're doing inventory, they're helping with the moves in and out of the classroom. So I appreciate everybody's hard work. We thank them. And that concludes my report.
Thank you very much. Any questions or comments from the members? Hearing none, we'll continue on. There is nothing under old business this evening. Moving on to new business, the first item under new business is acceptance of resignation of school committee member. As the members are aware, unfortunately, last week, we did receive a resignation letter from Mr. Shenevert. Let me just publicly state initially that Mr. Shenevert's one of the finest people I've ever met. And he was certainly an asset to this committee and to our town. And he chose for, I'm sure, as he indicated in his email to us, he just felt that at this time, personally and professionally, it was time to move on. So I just want to thank him for all of his efforts. As it states in the town charter, whenever a member of an elected board does resign, there is a process. And please fill me in if I forget something with the process. The town clerk is notified, the Board of Selectmen is notified, and what is going to occur in the near future is the opening will be posted. It appears via the town website. I believe there are advertising requirements that are outlined in the town charter. Once that posting does occur, there are timeframes in which a joint meeting between the Board of Selectmen and this committee will be notified per the open meeting laws, and we will hold a joint meeting at that time between the members of the Board of Selectmen and the members of the school committee. Those who choose to apply for the open seat, we will review their applications. If they're there that evening, I'm assuming the chair of the Board of Selectmen would allow those that are interested to present to the joint committees. And then a final vote will be taken between the members of the Board of Selectmen and the remaining members of this committee. And that individual will fill the remainder of Mr. Shenevert's term until the next election. So what will happen in May is there will actually be 3 seats on that ballot. There will be the traditional 2 3-year terms, and then there will be the remainder of the 3rd year of Mr. Shenevert's term. So I believe I covered everything in the process. Was there anything that either Dr. Gogan or any of the members wanted to share?
If I may?
Sure.
I just want to give a shout out to Mr. Shenevert for his dedicated years of service on the school committee. He brought a particular level of professionalism and dedication and thoroughness to the school committee in my 2 years' time. I personally am going to miss his input on our committee, and I wanted to thank him for all of his dedication.
Any other questions? Hearing none? Yes.
No, I just wanted to echo Dr. Gogan's comments. Sitting with Mr. Shenevert on a couple of negotiation committees and just dealing with him professionally, he has been a true class act and a professional on this board. And I can't thank him enough for the way he acted and his professionalism and just the true respect that he had for all of us here in Webster. So I thank him.
We're going to miss him.
Absolutely.
So we will continue moving forward with the process outlined in the town charter and filling the seat vacated by Mr. Shenevert's resignation. I just have a couple housekeeping questions. Is your group here, everyone you expect? Okay. Are most of your administrators here
For the
covering
handbooks.
the rest of the
Yes.
most? Okay. If the members don't object, I'm actually going to take out of order because we do have a very long list of items under new business and jump to item 7, if that's okay, you guys? All right. So I'm going to jump to item 7, and I will entertain a motion to move to enter into executive session according to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, to consider the grievance brought about a public officer, employee, staff member, or individual, and we will be returning to open session following this executive session.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? We have paused the executive session so that we don't keep our other guests too late, as well as those that may be watching. And we will continue with the agenda of open session, and then at the end, as scheduled, we will reconvene into executive session following item 6 on the agenda. So continuing on item 5, new business, the next item under new business is appoint designee to Southern Worcester County Educational Collaborative. As outlined in Mass General Law, Chapter 40, Section 40E, school committees must annually appoint a designee to education collaboratives. In the past, the superintendent has been the designee. I assume she wouldn't mind if we continue that tradition.
I wouldn't mind.
So I will entertain a motion to appoint Dr. Gogan as our designee to the Southern Worcester County Educational Collaborative.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Laurie, would you poll the committee, please?
Yes.
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 Yes. Next item on the agenda is to appoint designee to the Central Massachusetts Collaborative. Again, as outlined in Mass General Law, Chapter 40, Section 4E, school committees must annually appoint a designee to education collaboratives. And once again, in the past, our superintendent has been the designee, and I'm not even going to give her the chance this time to object, so I will entertain a motion to appoint Dr. Gogan as our designee to the Central Massachusetts Collaborative.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Laurie, would you poll the committee, please?
Yes.
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 Yes. Next item on the agenda is to appoint school committee member to the School Building Committee. You want me to do this, or you want to do it?
We're looking for a volunteer.
Mr. Hurton, we are actually looking for 2
It's our
volunteers.
list, a preliminary
So
suggested
I
list.
put in my initial thoughts, and I did have some conversation with a member of the school committee. So we are looking for 2 appointees. I think it's always good to have 2. Should things change in upcoming elections or something should happen, it's always good to have that additional member on the school committee that can step up in the event that the other member's not there. So we are looking for recommendations.
But in all seriousness, obviously, we had 2 wonderful school committee members when the Park Ave School Building Committee
Absolutely.
was put together. And as a matter of fact, still exists until perhaps Monday.
Mm-hmm.
But unless there's an objection, it has been recommended that myself and Mrs. Blythe be appointed to the School Building Committee for the Bartlett project. And I will entertain a motion unless there are objections from the other members. And if you do object, that means you have to volunteer. All seriousness, I would entertain a motion to approve myself and Mrs.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Laurie, would you poll the committee, please?
Yes.
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 Yes, and funny how this works. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the school building committee. As Mrs. Perangeli discussed early on in our meeting, the first step in any school building project is creating a school building committee. Not to throw him under the bus publicly, but I will never forget that Dr. Chiardi said to me privately that this committee will only last a couple of years when he asked me to join. So I will tell everybody who's on it, it only lasts a couple of years. But we do have a proposed list of members of the school building committee. Did you want to go through it publicly?
Sure, sure. There are recommendations by the MSBA as to positions that you need to fill on the committee. So we need to have a school building committee member who is MCPPO certified, so that would be myself as the business manager. We need to have a local chief executive officer, so that is usually someone from the Board of Selectmen. That would be served by Ms. Lisa Contos. We need the town administrator, so that would be Doug Willitson. A school committee member, a minimum of 1. So we have 2, so that would be Mr. Hurton as the school committee chairman and Ms. Blythe. She could serve 2 roles, as a school committee and as a parent on the board. The superintendent of schools is part of the committee. Local official responsible for building maintenance, that would be myself. One person can serve more than 1 role on the committee. a representative of the office authorized by law to construct school building. That is somebody from the selectmen typically. So again, Mrs. Lisa Contos could serve that. Surprise, welcome aboard, Mr. Thomas.
You made the list.
You didn't know it, but you do now. The school principal for Bartlett is on the building project, building committee. We have a member knowledgeable in the education mission and functionality of the facility. Usually that is a teacher, a member that has been of the school district of some time. So I spoke with Ms. Nieves, and she would be happy to participate on that. We have local budget official or a local finance committee. On the accountant, Mr. Tim Bell, will be serving this role. We needed a member of the community with architecture, engineering, and/or construction experience. The building inspector, Mr. Ted Tatro, volunteered to be served in that role. And then we had 3 others that could participate. It could be a parent, it could be anybody from the community. Mr. Alan Young asked to participate on the building committee. He has been a parent, he's also a local resident, and he is our head custodian here of the facility, so I think he'll be a valuable asset. I think the next name you will recognize from the community. We have Mr. Ted Avlis, former Assistant Superintendent for Business here in Webster. He's also was a part of the last 2 projects. He's still, I think, I'm not sure if his expired, but he still also might be MCPPO certified, and he would be a great resource to have on the committee. He has a lot of knowledge about the committee and about building projects, and is very well versed. So he'll be a great asset to have on the committee. And then the last member we have from the community, and also a parent of a student here, and he serves as the Bartlett High Athletic Director, also asked to participate on the project moving forward. And that concludes our list. We have 7 voting members, which is good. You want an odd number, so there's no ties. If the committee approves of this list, we would sign it and send it in to the MSBA for their approval.
Any questions or comments from the members? All joking aside, although it was very long, it was, serving on the Park Ave School Building Committee was actually a wonderful experience. And it is a very important group, and it has tremendous responsibility, which I was unaware of when I first joined the committee. And if it does end up getting fully funded, this group actually ends up in conjunction with the district leadership team, really managing the entire project. So let me first thank everybody that volunteered and those that didn't volunteer. And if there's no objection from the members, I will entertain a motion to present the school building committee as presented. I'm sorry, to approve the school building committee as presented.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Just one housekeeping. The second
Yeah.
time, Mrs. Contos, if this ends up being your letter, voting members should be just say yes. That's all.
Where did I?
The second time she's mentioned, you have no.
Oh, I didn't, yeah, I have her yes at the other part,
Correct.
right? So just 7, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Hearing no other further discussion, Laurie, would you poll the committee, please?
Yes.
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 Yes. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the Bartlett High School Student Handbook. Dr. Gogan?
Thank you. We have for you tonight the changes tracked out in a cover page of the Bartlett High School changes, given that Mr. Thomas has just joined us this week. Mrs. Zernicki and Mrs. Nieves looked at the handbook and suggested these changes. A lot of them are, as you can see by the cover sheet, moving things around, clearing up discipline, and cleaning things up. So Mrs. Nieves is here. I can go through line by line if you'd like, or if I can answer any questions that you have on the cover sheet.
What is the desire of the committee? Just answer questions, or would you like each line item reviewed?
I don't think we need each item reviewed. That, no?
I just had one question. You
Okay.
probably know what it's going to be.
No, about the, yes, you know what? I probably know what the question is, but please ask it.
So, since all of you, I know Ms. Nieves has been in her position a really long time, and Mr. Thomas has been with us for 48 hours. We obviously had a discussion last year, in all seriousness, and the discussion occurred with the previous principal, who at the time I think was in his position for 3 weeks, and yourself and the committee. And the concern I raised had to do with the 10-point deduction for absences. And honestly, my intent last year was not necessarily to have it changed. It was a concern. And the concern that I had at the time, and I still have it now, is looking back to when I made the comment last year. Historically, unfortunately, we have had one of the worst dropout rates and graduation rates in Central Mass. And low test scores and high failure rates. And the concern I had about that deduction was, if I am a student who's struggling, and I get it, everybody needs to be held accountable. And the goal, as kids come in ninth grade and eventually hopefully leave us in 12th grade, we want to try to develop a level of, you need to be responsible for your actions. But if I'm a kid that struggles and I don't have a great home life to begin with, and I hate school, and I'm at a 55, and all of a sudden now my grade, or I'm at a 60, and now my grade is down to a 50 because of the absences, am I even going to try? And I did read the language, and I understand there's different language, I believe, in comparison to last year, where you can't go below a 50 and there are opportunities. I guess the frustrating part, I'll be 100% honest, is if we are expecting and holding the students accountable. At a previous meeting recently, the Bartlett administration, and again, I know Dr. Cushing's no longer with us, admitted that they did not do much this year to proactively encourage students to come to school. And no matter what you do, sometimes there are certain kids that will not come. I get it. I know pretty well firsthand what goes on a daily basis. However, I have a hard time saying, if we don't hold ourselves accountable and we're not doing everything we should be doing to be proactive and positive and trying to reinforce what we want them to do, yet we're going to hold the students accountable and take the 10 points away. And now are we putting those kids back in a position where they're going to have the mindset that I've gone from a 65 to a 55 and I'm not going to try anymore?
Last year, the principal at the time brought this up at a school committee meeting because the 10-point deduction was considered, in his view, punitive. And at this meeting, we took it out of the handbook. And you can jump in. What we were informed was the staff as a whole felt very, 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 very strongly that students were giving up because they weren't being punished with the 10-point deduction. I had a hard time understanding that. I also had a hard time with the lack of follow-through on attendance issues. The administrative team was tasked back last December to put together new strategies with dealing with attendance. One of their strategies was to put the 10-point deduction because there's a belief that that helps some students stay in the game. And now the new language with the 10-point deduction is that they can earn back the time, earn back the credits. So because you're in the building, Ms. Nieves, do you want to speak to why this was put back a little bit more?
We don't want to take it away and not give them that chance. So putting it back, having them work towards it, it'll make it more, they want it. It's putting them accountable. It's making them accountable for that work that they had missed or chosen not to do, or didn't make up. Like Dr. Gogan had said, a lot of them did throw their hands up and just didn't do anything at one point. So we wanted to say it's not a lost cause. We want you to be able to come back and do.
So my concern as the superintendent is any attendance issue needs to be investigated. There's something going on when kids aren't going to school. I don't personally believe deducting 10 points is going to make a student want to come to school. But there may be a few kids that really are motivated by grades. Kids have to have the opportunity to make things up. So that piece is in here. I think this is kind of convoluted because there's a belief that the older system that was in place with the deduction of the 10 points worked for some kids. Because there is a belief with the staff, that is being put back in there. I don't have an issue with it being back in there because students have now the opportunity to make it up. Having said all that, the real issue with attendance has to be investigated. Guidance staff have to get involved. Teachers have to get involved. It's a one-on-one case because, you know, kids are kids. Some kids may be motivated by grades. Some kids are not motivated by grades, and there are other reasons they're not coming to school. Our job is to determine what those reasons are and help fix those barriers. So this is put back in for several reasons.
Yes, sir.
If I may, I agree with you totally. Like, this is certainly not a solution to the problem of absenteeism or chronic absenteeism. We want to make sure our kids are engaged and feel part of the community. And I think one of the things that I talked about when I was interviewed as part of a committee, it's like, what do we do when kids are chronically absent? Is there a task force? Are students called? When they do come to school, what happens to them? Is it like, oh, look who showed up, who decided to come in here? Kids come in late, like, look at the cat dragged in. How do we make those kids feel re-engaged as part of the community? So that's something that I know is in the turnaround plan. So I agree with you. There needs to be a level of accountability from the staff standpoint, but that is only one component to solving this problem. So I think it's the same thing. I was talking with Dr. Gogan, you know, kind of preliminary discussions. You're saying we had a dropout problem too. So I said, have we talked to the kids and asked them why they dropped out? You know, is there a system in place to kind of like recapture those kids or figure out what happened? And we're certainly not going to be able to answer every issue that a student has, but if we can get 50% of them to start, and if we can, if I may, we had a tardy issue at the previous school that I was at, and we started with, after the 5th tardy, the kid got an hour detention. And what we found was kids were saying, so if I'm 5 minutes late, I'm gonna have to stay an hour after school. If I stay home, there's no penalty.
That didn't work well.
So it didn't work well. So we tried to figure out, let's quantify it. How many kids are within 5 to 10 minutes late and their parents are busting their tail because they get out of work at 7 or whatever to get them there? And then how many kids are an hour late or an hour and a half late? Because then when you get that number down and say, that's 6 or 7 kids, then you can engage guidance, you can engage police, you can engage school adjustment counselors. So I think we've got to quantify it, but it's certainly not a catch-all situation by adding this in there. But I think it's a component of it that the staff feels strongly about, but it's certainly not something that's gonna solve the problem by itself. And I agree, there are opportunities for them to make up the credits, so it's not a loss.
Right.
And one of the things that I've been doing since I've been there, and I've only been there this week, is talking to kids in summer school, like, how'd you end up here? Is this fun? Like, you know, that type of stuff. So I think really trying to get those kids engaged, and not just academically, but part of the community, because not every kid knows where they want to go or what they want to do, but if they feel part of something, they feel that people care about them, they're going to be more engaged and more likely to come to school. And then, like I said, if the kids miss 3 days and comes in, what is the reception that they get? You know, so I think that's all part of the puzzle.
I guess I'll just make a final statement. And again, this is unfair to the folks sitting there, this is, you hear me tell you this all the time privately, this is the third or fourth time I've heard this. Yet, nothing, and trust me, I know what was presented in the improvement plan. And I really, really hope, and obviously it'll fall upon Mr. Thomas and his team to implement that, because to me, that is as if not more critical in those proactive, positive type. And trust me, I don't disagree with holding kids accountable. The thing that always bothered me the most was if we weren't doing everything we should be doing, should we be quote unquote penalizing the children?
It's a new school year with new leadership, and the school improvement plan is pretty clear about what we have to have happen, and attendance is crucial. We cannot have chronic absenteeism. So this was put back in, in part because there's a belief in the staff in the school that this worked to some extent. It is certainly not the solution. But kids will be able to gain back points.
Any other questions or comments from the members?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I really enjoyed hearing you talk about quantifying what exactly is happening, and it sounds like there's going to be some data collection happening. Can you bring that to us, maybe quarterly, so that we can look at that and determine where kids are falling short on, whether it be coming in on time, coming in at all, or leaving early, and what steps are being put into place to correct that?
Absolutely.
Great, thanks.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, what is the desire of the committee regarding the Bartlett High School Student Handbook?
Mr. Chairman,
Mrs. Siddiqui.
I would like to make a motion to approve the Bartlett High School Student Handbook as presented.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Laurie, would you pull the committee, please?
Yes.
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 Yes. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the Webster Middle School Student Handbook.
Good
Dr.
evening
Gogan.
again. On behalf of the middle school, I would like to share their changes, which are very simple, and Mr. Dan Kelly is here to jump in as well. There are minor changes to this handbook, certainly name changes and updating marking periods, adding the National Junior Honor Society criteria, and staff communication guidelines, and the whole piece about extracurricular activities, and use of cell phones, and the photo waiver.
Any questions or comments from the members? The only, and I know this hasn't quote-unquote gone to print, for now updating the list of the school committee members. And I assume under administration for Mr. Kelly, it would have to list interim.
Yes.
Are there any other questions or comments from the members?
I
Yes.
just have a question. In reading, it says, students participating in a sport or extracurricular activity, they need to be in school prior to 11 a.m. to participate. That's, why so late?
I think that's typically, in all the handbooks, yeah, it's a half a day, but typically that is the time in a lot of the
Except at
handbooks.
the high
believe Bartlett,
schools.
It's
in order to
8.
participate in extracurricular.
We just changed it to
8:30.
8, and it was just changed to 8.
So Bartlett's is considerably earlier. I asked that question earlier, but I didn't receive a response. I think Michael and Tony felt as if halfway through the day was an acceptable expectation for a middle school student. But it is considerably later than the high school's expectation.
Right.
Is that excused or unexcused? Because excused, I believe it's any time. during
Correct.
the
If
day,
they are
right?
excused, any
With a note,
arrival time
with a
is fine,
doctor's
doctor's note or something to that effect.
So we're talking about unexcused?
Right, unexcused, they can show up at 11 and still participate in an after-school activity. But then when they get to 9th grade,
Yeah.
it's 3 hours earlier.
I'm used to the 11 o'clock, but for consistency's sake, we may want to make that earlier. We may want to make it the same according to the high school that we just approved.
If you do it proportionately, I mean, the high school starts a little bit earlier than the
Right.
middle
So
school.
it's
so it'd
5
be the
minutes
same-
off.
Yeah.
So the same window of
Yes.
time.
Would you recommend that we approve it with the change or wait until you confer with Jack? If that's the intent of the committee.
Yeah. I know that Mr. Zajac is wanting to get his handbook printed because it becomes part of their agendas. You know, it's hard to say what Mr. Zajac's going to say, but maybe we could have a compromise a little bit later than 8:05, because I think,
The end of the first period, I believe, is 8:47.
yeah, I would be more comfortable with something like that.
Would you? So would the members agree and entertain a motion to approve the middle school handbook amended with the unexcused absent being, I'm sorry, Mr. Kelly, what was the time again?
I believe it's
End of-
8:47,
Just say end of first period.
end of first block.
By the end of the
Right.
first period.
I would entertain a motion as such.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Laura, would you poll the committee, please?
Yes.
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 Yes. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the Park Avenue Elementary School Student Handbook. And by the way, thank you, Mr. Kelly. I know
Thank you for having me.
there are unique circumstances that I won't share publicly why you would have been here anyways, but thank you for representing Mr.
My pleasure.
Zajac. Sorry, Mrs. Parmley.
That's right. Good evening.
Good evening.
So we did not have any significant changes. I do have to apologize. I noticed in the cover letter, there's a typo. We're not talking about 2019 going backwards to 2010. We're moving forward. So I apologize for that. So the changes that we've made basically was, we wanted the central office staff to be a little bit more specific. We also updated our PAE staffing. We do have a couple of positions that we do not have their names yet because they need to still come forward. So those will be added in. Also on page 9, we have gone from a 6-day cycle with our UAs to, we've gone to a 6-day cycle from a 7-day cycle based on feedback from staff, specifically UAs, needing to see the students on a more consistent basis. We were able to get creative with our scheduling to be able to accommodate that. Then on page 18, one piece that we've added in, along with the PBIS, this past year, we really were stressing a lot of intrinsic motivation as opposed to prizes and tangibles. I really wanted students to own and be accountable for their behavior because it's expected. And if you raise expectations, students will always step up to it. So I included that. You'll notice on page 18, the different pieces that we have brought in this year and what we want to continue as far as pushing our expectations for students and how they behave with our Kid College, our Polar Plunge with our school-wide gathering, our Kids of Character focus, and also our voice volumes. So this year, a big piece for me was trying to have consistent language, common expectations. So whether you were in a classroom or in a hallway, in the cafeteria or in the gym, having consistency so it wasn't changing constantly for students. So that piece is in there. And then the last piece, when we talked about communication, last year we went to bringing in also Class Dojo. I believe we had around 90% of our teachers using the Class Dojo as another piece of communication. So this year we want to get that up to 100%, and I think that's going to be a very easy transition. Any questions?
Any questions or comments from the members?
Just one
Yes.
comment. I just want to give a shout out to you, Mrs. Parmley, for really changing the code of conduct in a very positive way at Park Avenue Elementary School. It is absolutely remarkable to see you in action with the students and give a hey-ho and have students say hey-ho and be quiet immediately. So I have told Mr. Zajac that he needs to spend a couple hours with you because the 5th graders going over to the middle school he needs to continue using that same language and expectations with the hey-ho. So you've started something that we're going to continue at the middle school. And I
wonderful.
really want to thank you for that, because you've done it in such a nice way that the kids love it. They love it. They love the kids pledge, the character pledge, and they're proud.
They are
So
proud.
that's because of you. Thank you.
Honestly, it was a team, the staff got behind it, but thank you.
Thank
You know what, it's all a team effort, and if the teachers hadn't supported it, it would have only gotten to the doorway. But the entire staff came aboard, so no matter where you go, I'll hear the teacher say, you know what, we're entering the hallway, we need to be at a level 0. And the kids know, they just know, so I'm so proud of them. And I will have to say that I don't know if you saw it, but there was a little piece on Facebook about a parent that is moving into this area and asked about Park Avenue. And I was so proud because the comments, one after another, was just really, complimenting our staff and how hard and invested the teachers work, and just what a positive environment it was. So I'm just very appreciative.
And we are.
Really am. Well, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Any questions or comments from the members? And since I said it to you privately before the meeting, I'll say it publicly. We are very, very thankful. I know it's a team effort, but we're very thankful that you're in our district each day. With no further comments or questions, I will entertain a motion to approve the Park Avenue Elementary School Student Handbook as presented.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Laurie, would you pull the committee, please?
Yes.
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 Yes. Next item on the agenda is approval of increase in Bartlett High School foreign language teacher from 0.5 to 0.6 FTE. Dr. Gold.
Thank you. I will let you know that we are having a lot of difficulty with finding a .5 foreign language teacher over at the Webster Middle School, and difficulty finding a part-time foreign language teacher over at the high school as well. The administration at Bartlett High School has asked to increase it to a .6 from a .5 to make the schedule flow. That is an estimated cost of about $7,000 increase. So we'd like your permission to do that. That certainly was not in our budget. We had a .5 in our budget, and we're hoping to find someone to do the .6. They need the .6 to make the schedule work. So that's what I'm bringing forward.
Any questions or comments from the members? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to increase the Bartlett High School foreign language teacher from 0.5 to 0.6 FTE, assuming, Ms. Bransley, it's in the budget.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Laurie, would you pull the committee, please?
Yes.
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 Yes. Next item on the agenda is review transfer signing of bills, payroll, and vouchers. We have been asked for a transfer request from the Webster Middle School, so I will entertain a motion to transfer $8,247.15 from the middle school student activity savings account to the middle school student activity checking account.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Laurie, would you pull the committee, please?
Yes.
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 Yes, and I apologize, Mrs. Siddiqui. I just realized I need to recuse myself from the next item on the agenda. So could you please share the transfer request from Bartlett High School?
Sure. So it looks like we have a request to transfer an amount of $18,770.30 from the Bartlett High School Student Activity Account at Webster 5-Cent Savings Bank to the Bartlett High School Student Activity Account at Webster First Federal Credit Union. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Lori, would you pull the committee?
Yes.
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 Abstain. So unless the members object, we are going to take a quick 2 or 3 minute recess, and then we will continue with open session. Earlier, we did pause our executive session, so I will entertain a motion to reconvene to enter into executive session according to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, to consider the grievance brought against a public officer, employee, staff member, or individual. We will only be returning to open session to adjourn our open session meeting, so I'm not going to require our video folks to stay during the executive session. For those that are watching, we will be returning to open session, but it will only be to adjourn the meeting. So I will entertain a motion to enter into executive session.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Laurie, would you pull the committee, please?
Yes.
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 Yes.